Hi, everybody. I believe we're live right now. Sometimes the timing is a little bit off, but I am so thrilled today to be with my great friend whose name is Miracle. So if you look at the title of this talk, we are talking about miracles and unlimited miracles in these crucial times. Critical, crucial, all of that. This man has such a fascinating story. First, I want to thank you so much for being with me, and then I'm just going to say a few words about you.
Yes, aloha, sister. So good to be here on the call with you. Excited. I think this is a long time coming.
Oh, for sure. We just got to reacquaint each other with each other in Shasta, Mount Shasta. There was a conference there at the end of August, and I met him at one of the gatherings before the event was over, and we got a chance to chat. And of course, my jaw was to the ground after about the first couple minutes. His story is so incredible. His ability to not just access the miracle energy, but to embody the miracle energy is a real mind blower. These aren't the kind of stories you hear every day. So we're going to really tap into human potential. We're going to get to know him a bit more and the kind of work that he's been doing. He has put out a lot of material to assist people in mastery of the miracle method, which is a book that he's been working on, which he'll tell us about. But I have to just go into just some of your stories, particularly one of the back injuries you had in your healing process. If you could just take us into just where miracles have showed up in your life and how you just took the name and literally are, a living miracle.
Yeah, sure thing, Laura. So yeah, I guess the biggest thing would be that that name was basically given to me by the lead neurosurgeon when he basically saw that I was walking. And after, a very extremely devastating experience where I had a nice little walk on a balcony in Bali, and the balcony basically just fell apart, and I did a free fall about 11 meters, 2.5 stories into the jungles around this river called the Champwan area. And I was in a pretty bad state. I had completely destroyed my lumbar spine, and I was paralyzed from the heart down and was in a situation that was not very ideal. So yeah, I would say, I publicly, I think you've seen the video. I publicly shared this at the beginning of the year for the first time. This experience of this fall happened in 2017, so it's been 4 years. But I went through a really big process. I had to go to a deep dive into the work that I had been sharing and facilitating for 15 years through my ministry, divinejoy.org, and I had to become a miracle. I had to become someone new. I had to link in and, in a way, time travel to a new body with a new spine in a whole new environment, in a whole new state of being. And the person that I was before could no longer exist in the timeline of optimized radiant health with a new body and a new spine in the future one that obviously when I was down in that ravine, I was just in the karma of the moment. I was in the cause and effect of the moment of everything that I had created up to that point in my life, which was beautiful things and had served the planet and been teaching in 12 countries and on tour and doing the whole influencer thing and did the whole, just all the things that we do on the social world that is now ubiquitous for everyone in order to materialize spiritual materialize, our existence, so to speak, to make money in this matrix. And so this fall got to kind of destroy all of those dreams, all of the different projects, and I got to see just how my mind and my brain was so incoherent, and all of a sudden you can be as spiritual as you want. You can have all these great ideas. You could be helping thousands of people. You could be making money and having success doing the spiritual materialistic thing. And I was doing it full core. And then all of a sudden you have a really powerful initiation. And this was probably the 7th initiation of my life where I've done a massive pattern interrupt and had to go into a massive, death process to spontaneously regenerate and spontaneously heal. And so that process took me from getting a lot of metal into my body in Indonesia, in Bali. And then it propelled me into a huge journey of recovery with, 5 pounds of steel and titanium in my body that saved my life. And at the same time inhibited my ability to do asana practice and move my body in ways that were very easy for me previous to the fall, and still work with getting functionality in my entire body to then realize that, okay, I have to fully embody and master the miraculous ability to completely resurrect my spine. And that means that I can't go 50% or 60%. I've got to remove all of this metal out of my body and then go into a massive deep dive into regenerating 5 vertebrae that had holes in the middle of my spine. And so that was the task that then put me out another 6 months from the original fall, which then propelled me into removing all the metals, moving my whole life to Singapore, and going into a deep dive in Singapore, where I spent basically almost 10 weeks in a semi-light deprivation space that I had created before getting all the metals removed, and basically going into, these ancient teachings that we've done in other iterations of lifetimes, as well as many masters, whether they went into a cave, into the dark, whether they went back into the womb of the sarcophagus in ancient Egypt. These teachings, these holographic realities had to go back online for me. And of course, I had lots of training, and I would, being someone who's facilitating at a certain level that I thought I was at, but I had to go to a whole nother level of, becoming that instead of just talking about it, instead of just navigating the matter-to-matter world of the 5 sensory world and saying, oh, well, okay, the quantum field is like this, and this is what Dzogchen is in Tibetan Buddhism. This is the Hawaiian Huna. This is, esoteric Gnosticism. This is all these different pathways, and it's easy to talk about it and learn it and, maybe digest part of that meal and then be able to talk about it because there's some semblance of experiential wisdom. But then there's the actual application of it, so that the information and intelligence that I'd been teaching and sharing, I had to apply it, not only integrate it, but apply it in the 3D world. It was not enough to be so seemingly esoteric. And I think that's the thing, is like the realization that there's one thing to be esoteric about knowledge, and then there's another thing of having to put your money, where your mouth is, so to speak, and go through this process of dissolving the scaffolding of timelines from other lifetimes, as well as embracing unresolved traumatic falls, so to speak, separations, so to speak, in duality in other life streams, other timelines, because I got to have that beautiful, challenging experience of going into all the traumas of every fall that I've ever had of many lifetimes since, the things that we're playing out now on this earth plane. We've had many civilizations where we've had this desire to be in collective mastery and to reactivate a lifestyle that was reminiscent of like the golden era of Egypt and the golden era of, different civilizations, ancient, future civilizations, whether they're extraterrestrial, whether they're, off planet, whether they were in Atlantis, whether they were in the Antarctic regions, whether they were in Lemuria, Mu, places like Shasta, all these, Sedona, where I'm at right now, all these places have these, memory fields of us having a group collective experience and doing freaking kick-ass shit together, and really using our full brain capacity and applying our deep embodiment and mastery of intelligence into form. And I think that's something that I've been working on for 20 years of my life. But when I went through this fall 4 years ago, it was like, oh yeah, you have all these amazing ideas and you're teaching at a certain level, but you are not even close to actually holding the fortitude and the strength of being able to hold what you've held before. Because in some semblance, as who I was before, I was afraid of fully interfacing with the full presencing of who I really am. And so that process was like, it's kind of like hitting the 32nd, in just to go back into sort of like numerology and energetics of like mystery schools, but it's like hitting the 32nd aspect. And we're here to become the full Christ consciousness, which is the 33. And so from the 32, that number, to the 33, there is a huge initiation that needs to happen. And of course, this wasn't in a safe, mystery school type of thing. This was me open sourcing, the reality of the great mystery school of life, and having to do this in front of, my beautiful 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 family, as well as the nurses and the doctors, and then obviously taking that to Singapore, where I had already been teaching for many years. So I had a community there, and I had my whole support team there for the studio I was, doing my work at that time. So I had support to be able to go through these initiations and go into this deep dive into, how to actually become, like the title of this download is the transmission of how to become an unstoppable miracle. Because there are so many points in the way where either I stopped myself or could have stopped myself, or it was the white coats or the medical world saying to me that, if you don't do this, or if you don't get this particular type of BMT, or this genetically modified material, or this kind of false, 𝗍𝗂𝗏 bone protein thing, or you do this kind of HGH, human growth hormone, or, if you don't take these kinds of antibiotics, or if you're not on morphine, or if you're not on fentanyl, your muscles are just going to completely atrophy. We don't know how long it's going to be until you're going to able even to like wiggle your, toes, or move your leg, or even go to the bathroom on your own. I mean, there's so many aspects of it, right? You have a general nervous system, you have the sympathetic, you have the parasympathetic, you have all these different things of the interology of this like beautiful body that's our inner verse, that's this freaking divine intelligent body, this somatic intelligence. And yet at the same time, we are so ingrained with trusting, the doctors and the medical world, and this whole scientific method based on Newtonian physics, and everything is, lensed towards keeping us in this box, keeping us safe, keeping us held back from really becoming unstoppable, and becoming unstoppable miracles. And so for me to become my own version of that, I had to really go to bat and freaking hit grand slams. I couldn't just hit a single or a double or try to, make it by stealing home. It was like, no, I've got to freaking hit grand slams every freaking time. And how am I going to do that? How am I going to hit a grand slam when there are no answers in the medical world? They have no answers for me. Their answer is to put more metal into my body. Their answer is that, why would you ever think about removing any of those metals? You're freaking crazy, and that took me a long time in itself to find an actual neurosurgeon who would say, yeah, I'm going to take this out for you. I went through 6 neurosurgeons, several in California, one in India, one in Thailand, one in Singapore, before I found the one that would do it. And it was only because he had some semblance of awakening and really understood like who I was and saw my soul, and was connected to a dear friend who was a Qigong master. And so he knew that already the quantum field was a possibility, but still at this juncture, there was still a lot of fear. There was still a lot of doubt. There was, he told me in the first session, or maybe it was the second one, that, in 1,000 surgeries, he's never done a surgery to take this much metal out of someone's spine for them to live and walk again as a normal person. So, I don't know what you're going to do, but we're going to walk into the unknown with you, And so it was like having to really, and that was a process. It took 4 or 5 months that then led up to finally scheduling a time to take it all out. But even then it was, this individual, this neurosurgeon kind of, got freaked out a little bit and just realized that, after so much back and forth, CT scans, X-rays, analysis, from the medical 3D world, realizing that, I don't think we can do this, and that was a devastating point for me. This was at the end of 2017, around the holidays. And so, that was the real test, because I feel like I had, after 9 months exactly since I originally fell, early 2017, I exhausted everything possible, including, all the inner work that I knew and everything that I applied through teaching breath work for 15 years, sound vibration, being a musician, someone who's meditated for over 20 years, Tibetan Buddhist, and I exhausted everything. And it finally came to this point where it was like, I don't have the medical leading edge neuroscience knowledge, and I need to learn this, because I can't speak in these people's language, because there's just, even though we're speaking English, there's languaging in every one of these kinds of, different aspects of society, including the medical world. And so that being said, I got to work with a brother named Dr. Joe Dispenza, which lined me up into, because the neurosurgeon basically said, we want to do 4 more surgeries. So I don't know if you know this, Laura, I don't know if you've had invasive surgeries, but brain, heart, spine, these are the most complex surgeries, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. They can easily get super, messed up. They're very intensive. And so I just knew that there's no way I was going to do 4 more surgeries. So this
was after you had already requested to get all the metal taken out, right? And they said,
exactly. This is the same guy that I was walking hand in hand with in Singapore for like almost 4 or 5 months up to this point. And then he dropped the bomb of like, yeah, I need to do 4 more surgeries to take it all out.
And then you need to kind of learn the language.
Of course, if I could take it out myself, then I would, but I'm good, but I'm not that good. So, but yeah, so that's where I was just devastated and just in a really, really deep depressed state in that meeting. And he just said, listen, it's been a really intense year. I'm not going to say anything more than this. I really feel like through everything we've been doing with you for the last few months, like, you're going to need 4 more surgeries. So take that home. It's the holidays. I need a break. Let's reconnect at the beginning of 2018, and we'll see what comes up then. And so, yeah, I just kind of just threw in the towel, and I just said, besides, like, I wouldn't be able to afford that 4 more surgeries. It was a devastating moment. And so from there, I received an email from a dear friend in Hawaii, And I kind of just cried myself to sleep, and it was Christmas Eve, and got up at like 2 a.m. on Christmas Day and checked my email. And there was one email from my friend, and she just said, hey, there's this whole guy that I know, and he's never got the metal in, and he completely spontaneously regenerated everything in his spine. Check out his interview, check out his work. And that happened to be his brother named Dr. Joe. So Dr. Joe Dispenza. So I ended up seeing his whole work, and I went to do his work 10 days later in Barcelona, Spain, and saw his interview, and it was not the same experience, but similar, because I hadn't met anyone. I had put it out to dozens of people in that last 9 months, like, hey, has anyone ever done this before? Has anyone ever destroyed their spine, paralyzed, wheelchair, and then completely walked without any help and any freaking metal, and just became someone new? And no one. There were like false leads. There were people like, yeah, someone did it. And then it would just, it was just kind of like this whole mystical thing of like, 2 and 2 never completed to make 4. It was just, a dead end. And so when I finally got, I'd heard about Dr. Joe, but I'd never knew from like What the Bleep, but I never knew anything about his work. I didn't know his story. So when I got to see his story, it was so very similar, except, his whole story is he got hit by an SUV going like 60 miles an hour in the opposite direction on on a triathlon, where he was in a bike going the opposite direction around a blind corner, and he got thrown, and I can't remember exactly how much vertebrae he destroyed, but it was a lot. It was like 10 or something. So what I realized is I needed to work with him, and he completely resurrected from that process and wrote 4 books, and has been helping tens of thousands of people around the world. I would say millions at this point. It was his first ever training in Spain, and a week-long training. And so I went to it and basically got the download, spent a week in coherency with a group of 1,000 people. And then I went to Ibiza at a friend client space who just said, hey, do your miracle work there, bless my space up. And I did the work for another 6 weeks. And then from that, I started really connecting with the infinite, unstoppable possibility that I could, in a future moment, completely merge and interface with a brand new body and walk again. And so through my dreams, that's where I knew I could set up the Zoom call the Skype call with the neurosurgeon and his team, set the date. And that's what I did, and set the date and flew back to Singapore from Spain. Actually, technically I flew back to Bali, and I had to close down all my projects, close down my land project, close down everything, move my whole life to Singapore within 10 days to prepare for 5 days to go underneath the knife to remove everything from my spine. And
he was in agreement, to a certain degree, whereas before he was giving you really intense advice about getting those surgeries. So through the trip with Joe Dispenza and what you gained from that, you were able to get on the call and say, let's go for it, regardless of what you think. Is that?
Yeah, because the work is about really completely getting into a state of consciousness where who you are and everything in your karmic incarnation to that point has created this effect of a cause, or it could be many effects, and many causes, right? To the point where you are creating new causes, and then you are future forecasting a timeline where you are creating and co-creating new effects from existing causes that are not only coherent, but supernaturally connected, cohesive, congruent with your true self. So even though I still had the metal in my body, I had in myself gotten to this point where I knew enough of the neuroscience languaging and the deep dive that I did with the whole Encephalon crew, with Dr. Joe, his company's crew, and then working with the community, and then going into, doing the training, and then doing that work that I learned and studying it nonstop for 6 weeks, including doing the meditation and the coherent work and doing that nonstop for about 6 weeks, which led me to this point where it's like the confirmation for me was not a person, not a white coat. It was myself connecting with my more expanded self. I don't use higher or lower anymore because it's literally either you're fulfilling your fullest potential or you're not. That's all it is. There's no judgment between higher and lower. That's all a dualistic separation game. We're here to fullest. We're either to activate fullest potential possibilities or not. That's it. And so I connected with that. And I had a series of dreams, one very profound, where I actually connected. I actually connected with Dr. Joe in another life during Roman times, where this same thing happened, and he helped me heal because he was a very powerful healer and philosopher at this time, and he actually helped me, and we were in the same crew. And then after he helped me heal from a spinal injury in that life, on our way to this massive festival of uniting all these, it was during the fall of Rome. So it was like, I'm just telling you this because this was the confirmation for me of like, okay, I'm on the road to getting a brand new spine, because this has happened before in another iteration. I've never actually shared this publicly in this way, but what I will say is that I had a very powerful lucid dream where I went into a past life with a whole group of people, and Dr. Joe was a part of it. And our two groups merged together, and he healed me in that timeline so that I could then play a role in this greater unified gathering that was either going to destroy the entire civilization of Rome, or it was going to bring those that were still awake together so that at that point in time, we could unite the people while the rest of Rome was falling apart enough so that we could then, go to the promised land. So from this experience, it was literally my last night in Spain. I had this lucid dream, and I knew it's time to fly back to Singapore and prepare to get all this metal removed and then go and, basically fill all the holes in my spine on the 3D. So that's what was this symbolic lucid dream signature of confirmation, which enabled me to have the call with the neurosurgeon and his team, solidify the date, and then get on the coherent track of like, now I need to match these two timelines solidly together. And that was then the 3D work of actually, doing everything in that process, moving my whole life to Singapore. And then once that was done, the metal came out, they wanted me in the hospital for a week. I walked the next day with help, with a huge body brace and a walker and a friend, but I walked because I was paying $5,000 a freaking night to be in this like crazy hospital. And I was like, that was incentive to get out. And so the following day, that night I said aloha to the head nurse, because I knew if she saw me, then she could confirm with the head neurosurgeon the next morning, which he did. And that's where he actually called me the first time. He said, "You are officially a medical miracle. No one has ever done this. You are 0.0001% of the population." He's like, we know you need to like go home. Because I basically told him, I said, the biggest difference between when he talked to me previous to my work, and getting coherent and working with Dr. Joe, and then after that dream was that, hey, how are you going to do this, Miracle King? How are you going to do this? And I said, well, I'm going to epigenetically rescript every single gene in my lumbar spine and recreate every single subatomic particle and rescript every single gene protein and make a brand new spine from scratch. That is what I'm going to do. So when he heard that, he was just like, okay, when do you want to do it? We'll do one freaking surgery. I'm going to take everything out of your spine. And so I know I'm jumping around a little bit here, but basically, yeah. So he took everything, called me medical miracle, fast forward, got medevaced to my Hanai family's home in Singapore, and basically, went into this whole deep dive. I had already set everything up in the dark room, semi-light deprivation. And yeah, I went through this whole deep dive that, basically started writing my book, but then bone brought on my computer after 6 weeks, and then phone fell in the water. There was like no technology. I spent almost about 3 weeks just drinking water, and I was completely in this lucid state all the time, full DMT, in the cave, completely rescripting my spine from scratch. And basically that's where the real work had to happen, because what took weeks at first started to condensing into form where I was literally hitting grand slams. You know, if you use the baseball analogy, I was hitting grand slams, whereas before, you know, and what I mean by hitting grand slams is, you know, I had to look at every single thought that becomes an electrical impulse, right? Our feelings are magnetic. Our thoughts are electric. We're electromagnetic beings, right? So we can either be super coherent electromagnetic beings, or we can be completely convoluted, dysfunctional, disease-ridden, you know, completely dilapidated Autobot robots, right? Which, I mean, shoots, look at the world now. Look at where we're at in the narrative now. Look how many people are in that programming, right? So even me and where I was, I still had a waterfall of so many disproportionate, incoherent, discongruent thoughts. And I got to see how freaking, you know, with just doing spiritual teachings, how many bad habits and behaviors that I'd taken on. So how I got to know that was when I got into a really deep voidal state. I began to have thoughts about totally random things that had nothing to do with epigenetically rescripting a whole new spine from scratch. So imagine a cell that you are connecting with God. For me, God is just the grand organized design, the infinite intelligence, and it's going to grant you exactly what you want. But if what you want is so convoluted with so many other thoughts, so much other disproportionate electricity, a waterfall of separation and illusion and duality of thoughts that are not coherent, it's going to not give you anything because it doesn't know what to give you. So we have to be completely in alignment as a pillar of vertical alignment in order to then paint this really coherent, clear, crystal clear picture of what is possible, of what you truly desire. And so from that imaginal cell, I had to mentally rehearse. Okay, it was like a rehearsal of what it was on stage, of having a brand new spine and having a body that did not have paralysis, that could feel, that could move, that could bend, that could flex, that could go to the bathroom on its own. I had to imaginal cell, not only that on the greater scale, but I had to go in to the anatomy. And this is the process for myself of going into, you know, the coccyx, and then going into, you know, S1 and S2 and S3, and then going into the sacrum, and then going into L5, and then L4, and then L3, and then L2, and then L1, and then T12, and then all the way up from thoracic, you know, to cervical to occiput, you know, and basically create a whole new spine from scratch. So that means like the anterior posterior process, like every aspect of each vertebrae, I had to go in and almost like become a 3D printer on the inside and reprint my subatomic particles for every single one of those vertebrae. And I had to do it at such a deep innerology, innerverse level that if I got into a process where I was on the bridge between the axial, right, on one vertebrae, let's just say L4, let's say I did L5 correctly, and then I did L4, and I would have a thought about like, you know, my bone broth, you know what I mean? Or, you know, I need something to drink right now, or I'm hungry, or, you know, I need to go to the bathroom, or something, some random thought that had nothing to do with making a perfect lumbar spine. I would start over because I didn't want that thing or object or person or event or feeling or whatever it was to come into my spine, because then I would just be creating more of the old karma in a brand new spine, and that was not coherent. And then I wouldn't be able to bring all those particles together in the Godhead. So basically, that's the process in a nutshell that took so much time. And I got to see, this is why the masters, this is why all the gurus and the rinpoches and, you know, all of them went into cave. They went in to regenerate their subatomic particles. You know, the mystery school of the Marys and the Magdalens and the, you know, the Yeshua and all the many different masters and the avatars, they knew this. We knew this in Egypt. We knew this in Tibet. We knew this in Atlantis and Lemuria. We knew this in all these ancient civilizations. We knew that in order to regenerate, we would have to go in to the void. And so all of these memories, which I had studied, you know, this deep Dzogchen Tantra for decades up to this point, but I had never put it into practice. So now I was forced to put it into practice. I got to learn how to come in to a new body and recreate a whole new body, because it wasn't just the spine. I basically had to do it for everything, you know, the muscles, the tissues, the nervous system, you know, the circulatory system, the sexual circulation, the kundalini, all these things had to be reconfigured, because when the bones break, everything else shatters, everything else is compromised. So in order to reactivate the tree of life, you have to move into this deep dive process, and you get to see, you know, how much, you know, I got to see in a very, very deeply, extremely humble level how confused and ignorant I really was. You know, I thought I had my shit together. Well, I didn't, you know, and it just made me realize so much of like that the brain and the heart does not care if you're a spiritual materialist or a material materialist. It doesn't give a fuck what you do for your life. It doesn't care. All it cares about is whether or not you are absolutely coherent in your connection with your intelligence to become unstoppable in your connection and in your coherent alignment with source intelligence. And then be able to actualize and co-create and co-manifest with the infinite source, God, intelligence, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is for you, it doesn't matter, because it is without you even needing to name it. But the connection is up to every single human soul, human being, to absolutely make that connection. And so for me to become miracle, to become someone who is able to sit in a chair right now and have a conversation with you right now in this moment, you know, and not be in pain and not be in suffering, I had to go through that process. And, you know, so the tail end of it was that I had a dream, and it was about almost 10 weeks after being completely on water and completely in the voidal lucid state at all times. I had no idea whether it was day or night. And I had a very powerful dream that was the best way I describe it is what I usually tell people is that I basically, I got it. If I could imagine coming into downloading, teleporting, reincarnating into a brand new Na'vi body, just kind of like this character Jake Scully did in the James Cameron's movie, The Avatar. That's kind of like what happened to me is I downloaded myself out of, I was not in my old body because I could see my old body, right? Being in the astral etheric, you know, light body, and re-scripting this so that my new body, I could re-download into it, and I downloaded into it, and I basically like was in this lucid state where I was running on earth with, you know, bare feet. And I was in so much joy. I was in so much happiness, tears of absolute deepest appreciation and gratitude, like to the extreme of that emotion and that feeling, right? Overflowing overwhelmment of gratitude and appreciation, you know? And that signified in the dream time, my electromagnetic field of like creating that full marriage. It was full union. And so after that, there was this still point, you know, there was this silence. There was this what I like to call an ancient Hawaiian Lemurian 𝗂𝗋𝗆, the great silence after union. I had a 𝗂𝗋𝗆 full experience. And in that 𝗂𝗋𝗆 experience, I felt the merging and the marrying of like the new body and my soul star self into one. And that's where I woke up in this world on my bed, laying down in my full body military industrial body brace, in Singapore. And I took off the whole body brace and I got up and put some clothes on and went outside and walked down the stairs to the garden, and I went for a jog in the grass. And I came back and I did a yoga asana practice and pranayama and did some of my breath light exercises. And I did that for 2 hours, and I had my full flexibility back. And all of a sudden I heard this voice that said, I heard the divine intelligence. This basically, I had a whole council around me of beings. I call them the Council of 12, but they're connected to the 144,000. And they basically said in one voice, they said, you now officially, well, congratulations, you now officially have done the work. You have graduated and reincarnated into a new body that has a 22-year-old spine. So like the equivalent of a 22-year-old spine. And so it's like I got a new lease, on my life. And that's how I knew I became Miracle.
That is just so wild. So when you say like new body, it might conjure up some pictures for people. And okay. And when you mention all these greater abilities, it's very obvious that advanced technologies are mimicking our human potential and what we're capable of doing. That's why you were able to override the medical industry and the different things that they use, even though there's more advanced technologies than what we see in the medical industries. But it almost sounds like you generated an organic clone that you brought your full consciousness into, even though it's not quite the word clone. So kind of help us understand a little bit more. Do you consider yourself not in the same body as you were when you had the accident? Or do you see it as the same body, but regenerated and rebirthed? Or how do you do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say that I have, what I mean by new body is that it's like when we connect with 2 points in time space where we have to teleport, we have to time jump. Okay, let's just put it that way. Now that's easy to say, and a lot of people can do that. Probably a lot of people on this call, but it's a whole nother. I mean, it wasn't like I had a choice. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I was like, well, gee, I'm going to go through this deep dive for 10 weeks. I didn't even know it was going to be 10 weeks. It could have been 6 weeks. It could have been 6 months. It could have been 6 years. No one knew. The neurosurgeon is like, you're going to be in Singapore for freaking 6 months to a year, maybe a year and a half, not moving. We don't know. No one knows, quantum time space jumping, literally, look, people go into deep meditative processes for 2 weeks. I know masters, including some of my teachers, and would go in for 3 years, 3 months, 3 days. Other people, they get their first awakening on a plant medicine trip. It's like you have your first experience of what it means to be connected, right? Beyond time, space, right? But imagine having to do that without a timeline that says you're stopping now. Like, no, you're going out until, so basically it was like, I had to die. This is dying, like, which wasn't death. It was death in the sense of I had to face all my demons, because that's what we get to do. I've died before. Like I said, this is my 7th death. So my first death, I did a whole life review, and that was 25 years ago. And so this was my 7th death. Supposedly I have one more. That's what I've been told. It's not going to be a physical one. But anyways, the point I'm trying to make, I've died a lot. I've had near-death experiences quite a bit. I'm not saying I'm an expert at it, but I can say right now, is that the biggest way that I can describe it is that when I was shown that vision of being able to be in a body that was like a 𝗍𝗶𝗶𝗏 body, I knew that that body was connected to my real body, the body that was laying down, right, in the physical 3D in Singapore. And when I interfaced back, it wasn't like I disintegrated this body. I still had this body, but the 𝗟𝘂𝗍𝗲 timeline in the new body was that everything had the things that needed to fuse together and regrow were done.
Because you cleared all the stuff.
So I could stand up on my own, walk on my own, go for a run, and feel zero pain.
Well, it's just incredible because the wiping, the clearing, the releasing, the resetting, the not allowing anything in, and keeping the okay, I'm going to do it again if you don't get it right, and you have to keep batting it out of the park. What's so extraordinary is it's like the tree of knowledge, which to me is gaining self-knowledge, the tree of life, and how the trunk of the tree is very much the spine, and how we've been in this ascension window, moving from the tree of knowledge into the restoration of the tree of life and our full capacity to embody 12 strand and beyond.
Yes.
I mean, this is a miracle vibration for the collective consciousness as well. It's such a huge resource and gift to all of us that you went through this, because wouldn't you say it adds sort of a resource and an ability to, you know, as people are trying to create that direct connect, there are ways for us to bridge with stepping stones through these kind of inspirational stories. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. I for sure walked the Hansel and Gretel breadcrumbs of my feminine and masculine self through the dark night of the soul many times, you know, valley of shadow and death, and also felt like I was holding a torch for the collective. Because, you know, obviously you know, you can relate to this. We're here for the collective. We're here for, you know, we're here for the Christ consciousness, the unified field, full mastery of this planet. And we've done this in so many iterations, so many previous lifetimes and life streams that all exist right now in this time. You know, it's just a door. We just need the key to unlock it. But I will say that all parallel realities exist in this time. But the difference is that we have to be able to not only embody it, we have to master it in this dimension. And we have to apply it so that so many other people who are now going through their dark night of the soul, right? They're choosing to follow this, you know, plan demonic narrative, right? I call it the plan demonic, you know, and plan demonic 2.0 is on the horizon. It's already here, you know, so it's just, it's not stopping, because it's forcing us through this funnel. It's forcing humanity, at least those who are going to choose, to do this inner work of complete spontaneous regeneration and becoming, as we've called it, unstoppable miracles. Because you think about it, I had to basically rebirth myself. That's in a gist, that's what I had to do. But not, I mean, we all have mini rebirths all the time, right? Like if you get COVID, or you get a bad flu or pneumonia, or you get, you know, you get cancer, or you get tumors. And trust me, I've met hundreds of these people now in the last 4 years. And I've seen incredible miracles with those kinds of things as well. I'm not the only miracle. There's tons of us out there. There's millions of us out there. But I would say on another level that to go through this valley of shadow, yes, we almost have to rebirth ourselves and become our own. I had to become my own divine mother and my own sacred father. And I had to, conceive myself again. And I had to not go through 9 months of gestation, right? 3 trimesters, but I had to go through, 9 weeks of it pretty much, and the 10th week was the actual I'm coming out of the womb again, And so in that process, just like when you or, anyone who's a mother who knows the process, you're carrying in that pre-limbric state, you're carrying the child, you're carrying the embryo. You don't know if it's going to be a boy or girl, the more input you get from a volatile environment versus a very peaceful environment, whether you're in the jungle, whether you're in the woods, or if you have the power and the capability of being able to be in a dark room. This is why, for example, the Kogi people They don't allow their newborns and their children until they're like 7 years old to come out. So that includes the 9 months in the cave and then freaking 7 years of their life outside, because they don't want any of those electrical thoughts programming their next generation. They want them to be free, sovereign, unified field thinkers and masters, so that they are no longer affected by, all of the programs and the learned karmic, carried over, regurgitated behavior patterns that all of us inherit from our parents, all of us inherit from, our communities, our families, our brothers and sisters, our society, government, world, blah, blah, blah. All of these old paradigm that make up, the habits, the collective behaviors of the old paradigm. So imagine if I said to you, okay, you get some kind of crazy disease, or you break your back, or you get 4-stage cancer, in your colon or something. You got 3 weeks to live, right? How many people are getting this diagnosis right now? And some of them don't even have freaking symptoms. So they believe it. They get afraid. The first thing you do is react, right? Oh, you got COVID. Oh, you have to do this. So much fear, right? So much reaction that propagates the new behaviors, new habits, new systems of more malevolent belief systems, dilapidated, right? This is all part of that compression chamber right now to force people to choose. Like, am I going to go with this narrative that's eventually going to be this AI nanobot, totally controlled slave species? Or am I going to choose to completely say no to all of that, which is what I needed to do, which is the torch that I was like, trying breadcrumbs, leading to the gingerbread house. Like, hey guys, I don't know where the fuck I'm going, but I got to go this way. Here's the torch. And so leading myself down that path to the unknown was like, all right, well, there's only 2 options for me. It's like, I'm either in a wheelchair for the rest of my life because I'm not going to get fucking metal put back into my spine, or I'm going to become the full miracle. And I'm going to have to become unstoppable, unlimited, and, infinitely connected, and do the work. And so that was the work of getting coherent on the innerology and let go of all technology, let go of everything in the 5 sensory world, let go of the light attachment to the light spectrum, be in the dark room, be back in the womb, right? Go back into the cave and freaking regenerate everything. And honestly, now, like, I know whenever someone comes to me with a problem or they need advice, or, it's like, hey, how many people are willing to do this work? Well, unfortunately, a lot of people, until they get something really devastating, they're not willing to do the work. And obviously, I'm one of those people. Like, I had that walk on the balcony, and then I couldn't do any work. I had to command cancel 6 months of touring in 4 different countries and blah, blah, blah. I had no income. I lost everything. It was full on devastation, humility, humbleness, to then go, okay, yeah, you talked about the Christ for a long time. Now you got to become the Christ. There's no other way. It's like, you have to become your own crystal. You got to become your own Christ all. For me, it's all in one Christ. And that means the tree of life that you no longer have because it's cracked in 2, you need to regenerate that, fill it with holes so that it's so strong that you can fulfill your mission, because the game for you and the way you've been playing the game has been slightly incoherent. So now, this is the end result of that. And now we get to humble your ego, and now you're on the path. And I was told this on the path. I was told so much more information. But anyways, to get on the blueprint for this work personally, as well as on more the collective level, being able to do this with education, with Communiversity, and, be able to, this, what I went through is going to be the foundation for all future children's education. This is what I saw. Absolute baseline foundation. This is nothing that we're taught. We're not taught this in schools, K through 12. We're not taught this. And it's just what I saw into the future, which I was given my vision in 2003, 18 years ago, was Communiversity in the year 2022, which is now, less than a month and a half away. And we haven't still made it to that timeline. And Communiversity doesn't still exist in 3D, but I needed to be able to get that information out before the year 2022. And the reason on the greater meta blueprint level was that I was told that back in 2017, when I originally fell, when my body was down in the ravine near the river in the jungle, when I left my body, I basically was shown in 2017 that the earth was going to start changing very rapidly. She was not going to stop. She had given us, I was told by the Council of 12 that between 2012 and that particular shift date in 2017, that they gave us 5 years to see if our global awakened tribe would master and embody and then co-serve together what is possible for the new earth. And we got so enraptured and seduced by different narratives, whether it's materialism or spiritual materialism, that they showed me the map of the old earth and they showed me the new earth as if it was a huge jigsaw puzzle. Okay. And there were all these pieces, thousands of pieces missing. And there were a few pieces on the corners. That's it. Nothing in the center. And they showed my piece, which was blinking in the center. And they said, this is your piece. And you've been afraid to play it for almost a decade, for 10 years. And now we are forcing you to play your piece, because these are all the other pieces waiting to play their piece, but they can't play their piece until you play your piece. And you haven't put your piece on the table. So now you're below par. This is when I originally fell. And I was, I left my body, went through the wormhole. I was in this whole, white, dodecahedron building. And the masters gathered around me and they spoke to me in a unified voice. I was basically in the ships. And they basically said that you were afraid to play this piece. This is the only way that we could get your attention so we could put you back on the path. So even though now you're paralyzed, your body's in shambles and you're in a lot of pain and suffering, you're now on the path. So through your choices, you have to go through the process I explained to you and I just shared. So basically, I knew from the very beginning why this happened, but it didn't necessarily make it any easier, because it was like, okay, they didn't give me a script of how to do that. They just said, it's your choice. You're either going to get back to foundation level and be strong enough to carry your particular piece of this master jigsaw puzzle for the new earth, or, we're going to take you off the planet, and then you'll go ahead and review and probably start over again, because that's what we do. Yeah. And because there is no death, right? There is none. And so we just get recycled. And it's not always back into a human body. It depends on the parameters and the councils and, what are the cause and effects and, what's your Akashic, historical record, yada, yada, yada. So yeah, basically, I just basically, since the time when I was pronounced medical miracle, 2 weeks later, after I went for that first jog and was ready to go, they wanted to study me for another 6 months. And I said, no, thank you. I'm not here to be a guinea pig. I have a mission. I got to go. And that led me to 18 countries to connect the dots and create alliances for Communiversity and basically come back and, just make sure. I was told that something was going to be coming very dramatically, and that if I didn't get back in the year 2019, meaning back to the States, because I had been living, off Turtle Island, living off the mainland for almost a decade, more than 10 years, actually. So after I did a whole sabbatical and just was no one for nobody, could just get on a flight and just go meet an elder or go activate the geomancy for another, project, for another school, for another community, another, retreat center. I got guided to, move everything back to Mount Shasta, California, and get back to the States in California. And so that's what I did. And I got back, a few months before the whole pandemic hit in 2020.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
I was told very clearly to connect the dots, because you probably won't be able to travel and do a walkabout. That was my third walkabout in this life. And they said, probably that'll be your last in this way. because everything is going to change very drastically. And they said everything is going to lead up, not only the earth changes, but Mama Gaia, but also just socioeconomic, geopolitical, just obviously the medical situation. And we haven't even made it to 2022. And I was told 2022 is going to be the heaviest year. So I, that's just it. We've, done everything I've can to this point and continue just to show up and stay resilient, and make the connections. And, it's like many are called or few, but few are chosen. That was the saying of times past. Now I in the last couple of years, since we launched Communiversity and over solstice, and then, Mount Shasta was burning 2 days later. And so it was just like, it's like we do one thing and then it's like this chess game. It's just like we do something, they do something, we do something, they do something. And I'm not trying to give anything power to separation. I'm just acknowledging the forces of organized darkness. I'm acknowledging the sinister force. I'm acknowledging what every single master has had to deal with, because these forces have always been here, And so now they're just playing they're playing all their cards on the table, and they're not going to stop. So that means that we need to organize, and that we need to stay connected more than ever before, because the one thing that they've always had on us, so to speak, is that they're really fucking organized. Yeah. Even though they hate each other, they're super organized, and they have a common mission. They have a common blueprint that they do not waver from, and so, they do their rituals, they do their satanic things, they do this is their meditation. This is their freaking thing. Right. And the difference between us is, we are the many, they are the few, but we are so disorganized. We're getting more organized, but we need to be able to do this in person, being able to somatically connect with each other. It can't just be on the screen all the time. Even though I firmly believe absolutely that consciousness is non-local and the screen is a necessary situation right now, but soon enough, it's going to be extremely malevolent. And so, we don't want to throw the baby out the bathwater, so to speak. There are benevolent technologies that use the screen. There are, different things, I'm using right now, I'm actually running this quantum benevolent program. I don't know if you've heard of the 𝗲𝗍, but I love my 𝗲𝗍. Yeah. And so that's benevolent technology. And so the thing is that we have all these things right now that are re-manifesting from Atlantis and, even off-world. And I really feel like we have the capabilities, but the new adage is few choose themselves, because you have to choose yourself. There's no Messiah. There's no alien race. There's no ET 10th dimensional race that's going to save us or save you. There's no, I don't believe, I've not been shown there's going to be ships coming down to beam us up. We joke about that, but the fact is like, oh, send me your ZX1. It's like, no, the fact is we're here to step into individual mastery and then let go of that hat, so to speak, in a certain amount, so that we can create a assemblage point in a new geometry of collective mastery. And that collective avatar, I've been shown, is absolutely, that really is the unstoppable miracle. It's unstoppable miracles, plural, because what we can do individually and what I've done is amazing. Yeah. But great. I feel like I'm barely beginning. I'm barely beginning. I feel like I'm just a Zen beginner, because what I've seen and what I've interfaced with even my descendants, of which I'm their ancestor, and we say 1,000 generations in the future, it's Star Wars. It's like 1,000 generations ahead, 1,000 generations ahead of us right now. These beings that we've sat with, who have given us teachings, me and other members of my core team, we've literally sat and experienced their life. We've been shown what it looks like on the earth. And believe me, it's nothing like it is now. I mean, this whole artificial intelligence and all this stuff that's being created doesn't even hold a candle to the fucking incredible, unified, cohesive, coherent global bonfire that is bioorganic plasma intelligence. And these beings are so advanced. The children of my children's children, way, way far out, are so advanced, you know. And, you know, that's the reason I'm still in a body. That's why I have a brand new spine and, you know, continuing to do the work in this body. And believe me, I have my good days and my bad days. And it's not all cookies and cream just because you know, we're dealing with so much in our environmental field, you know, in our body field, in our timeline field. And we got to continue to show up and do the inner work. We have to have a discipline and a devotion to a practicum, a practice. And I really believe and feel and know inherently that the next step is we have to be able to do it together daily. And so that's the thing, is that like, that's really why I'm here. I just know that's why I'm still here, to complete my mission and complete my blueprint before I can really, you know, go through the full ascension process. Yeah.
Gosh, this is just so incredible. I'm actually writing a 3-part book series called Into the Unified Field, and it's all about what we're talking about, the underworld, going into just this death, rebirth, alchemy, transformation. Some people look at death and the body's gone, but we can go through the death, rebirth, alchemical cycle and maintain this body. And it's very, very difficult, but ancient indigenous cultures had those, you know, kind of initiations, it seems. But this is on a whole other level when you're dealing with a physical body.
They absolutely do.
One can go through a dark night of the soul and have it be very much in their emotional body, or breaking down programs or thought forms. It's a whole other thing to regenerate and deal with the physicality. And this is what's such an incredible reminder, because as you see what we're up against and the targeting of our children with, you know, like you said, with thought forms and programs, and how exposed they are from such infancy to the electrical thought form energies of social engineering, and how this is passed down generation to generation. Then they hit the school systems with, I mean, it's going to take very masterful ancient souls coming through and star seeds coming through during these times to be able to withstand all of that, to then link into the unified field that you're helping to illuminate and create. What do you feel? I mean, I know we're all having our ups and downs. You mentioned a few of the visions that you had and have, and 2022 is going to be pretty rough. But when you see, you know, people making these detrimental decisions, being somebody that had so much metal in your body that got taken out, because I always stand by our capacity to do this on a macro level, which I know you were talking about, to nullify the mark of the beast and create this larger global alchemy where we can go through a death rebirth cycle as a collective. Do you see that is going to happen? Do you see kind of like a bifurcation? Do you see that some will get it and others won't? Well, I mean, that's kind of obvious, but I guess the question is, do you feel that the AI, the nanites, the nanobot, the whole AI thing and how it relates to what people are putting into their body, do you see that as being reversible when somebody creates the alignment that you were able to create when you regenerated your spine? Do you feel that is going to become a new wave of awareness and understanding in order to help humanity overcome these detrimental choices?
Yeah, 144%, sister. Absolutely. I feel like we have already bifurcated. You know, when I say it's going to be rough, I mean, it's already rough, right? We're in rough and ready right now, right? I mean, we have to be resilient right now. I mean, the fact is it'll be rougher. You know, it's kind of like a wave. It's like, yeah, we're kind of just in the beginning of the undertow. And what I'm saying is we got to be ready to get rough, and it's already rough and ready. And at the same time, those of us that are still doing this inner work and getting coherent on our innerology, managing our time and the external technology, and finding a good balance of homeostasis, we have the universal, the omniversal responsibility to overflow and share that with others, because yes, I believe the bifurcation has already happened. I believe people, there's already people lining up in Silicon Valley that have paid, $5,000, $10,000 to be on the waiting list to get the iPhone Neuralink chip inside of their head. And there's been others that have been met that have gotten this as the pre-whitelisting thing last summer. I've had a friend who actually met this person in Tahoe, and they were scanning, it was like a Star Trek thing where they were scanning the thing, and he asked him a question, some crazy question. He's like, let me scan. And he was scanning on side of his inner brain the answer to the question. He was scanning Wikipedia. So I'm just saying, this has already happened, okay? We're already in a timeline of bifurcation. And what I'm saying is that when you choose yourself, yes, it is daunting. Yes, it is. It's like, oh, well, yeah, okay, Miracle is easy for you in some sense because you had no choice. That's what some people say, not a lot. But, those people who are like, I meet people in wheelchairs who are still in wheelchairs who went through the same thing with me 12 years later. You know what I mean? So you got to decide for you, what is your path? Maybe the wheelchair path is fine. Maybe you can still activate your mission with having cancer or having broken bones. For me, no, I needed to be able to flip on a dime, shift on pattern interrupts, shift my assemblage point in my physical body. So for others, it may be different. Maybe they won't be able to do that, but they'll do as enough of what they can, because the body can only operate at some level, And the fact is that, and I know that there is no death. We need to set that as a foundation. Death is the last and greatest unknown, and there's so many other fears that lead up to that. But if you realize death is just a full-on transition, and you can either celebrate that or you can get afraid of that, it's up to you. It's a celebration. Really, it's a full-on hallelujah. Okay, but I will say this: that if we're still in a body and we're still mitigating what it means to have a flesh suit, then you have the omniversal responsibility to choose to start to get coherent in your brain and your heart and your body, so that these three aspects, which represent the three jewels, body, speech, and mind, these are going to line up more consistently. And if you are not in the ideal situation, the ideal environment, the ideal people surrounding you, the ideal timeline, then that means that you have work to do. And it means, because even though it feels like there's so many distractions and so many separation programs and frequencies that are malevolent, and there's this huge, like, misty, foggy, stormy miasma that we can't punch through, the fact is we have so much behind us, so much incredible guidance and intelligence behind us, that as soon as we step forward, for me, all I needed to do was, energetically, etherically step forward, because I could literally step forward, right? I could roll forward, right? But for whatever person, whatever you're going through, you have an opportunity to start moving in that direction. And it starts with one thought. It starts with your will saying, I am going to cross this river, cross this ocean, cross this lake, whatever analogy you want to use. I got to cross. I got to form my own bridge to get to the other side. And if we can't imagine ourselves and visioneer, I call myself a visioneer right now, because we have to be engineers and we have to have a vision. If we don't do that on the innerology, then there's no technology. There is no saving grace. There is no product or service that's going to save us. There's no Messiah. It's not going to happen, guys. And we are creating this bridge that is either going to widen the bifurcation or it's going to unite it. And there are many things, even if we divide, there are many different parts that could then unite at different junctures of timelines.
Right.
It's not just like a cut and dry thing.
Totally.
So that's why we're living multidimensionally here, and we're attempting and doing our best in human being states of consciousness to overflow first in our own chalice. We need to overflow first. It's no good coming from sacrifice and all those old religious ways of doing things and martyrdom and change it, fix it, save it. You know, sacrifice programming is what I call, which many healers, many light, I don't even call people light workers. I hate that word. I dislike it. We don't have to work on the light, you know, you work on the shadow. You're more of a shadow worker. You're a lighthouse. The light is who we are. We don't need to work on it. It's who we are. If you scrape everything away, you're going to be light. So that's just it. It's like, we're here to be lighthouses and sit in the darkness, sit in the void. And whenever you can do that, then all of this miasma, this storm of the pandemonic and all the things and the fighting and the wars and this and that, this all disappears, because this is all the pandemonic force of the NWO, whatever you want to call it, the cabal, or whatever you want to call them. This is the way they win. They win by us reacting to all of that outside of ourselves. They want any kind of reaction.
Oh,
they
totally.
want to leverage you on every freaking angle: physical, sexual, emotional, mental, psychological, you know, causal, transcausal, metacausal. They want every single dimension from 12th dimension down, okay? Because you got to make it to the 12th dimension. Everything else can be hijacked. I don't care how light-filled that being is from the 11th dimension. I don't care how cool that Arcturian is, or that whatever avian is. It's like, if you don't merge with the 12th dimension, which is baseline foundation of unified field Christ consciousness, you haven't made it yet. So yeah, that's why the 12 is so important. And the 13th is the void. It anchors all those. And then it's the doorway that opens to all the rest of the dimensions that make us stable in multidimensional, unstoppable, miraculous awareness. That's the only way. And people don't get that because they're so fascinated by all these other dimensional timelines and all the different things that can get hijacked. And they think, oh, this light, this tantra, this new age thing, or this channeling thing, or whatever the frick it is. It's all bypassing. I'm not saying it's bad. It's a step.
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
You finish your thought.
I'm just saying, I was just going to say, like, you need to walk every run of the ladder, you know, so to speak. You know, we have to walk every rung of the ladder. But we got to get to the top one, you know. Absolutely. And for me, the top ladder is the 12th dimension. It's the 12th step, you know, it's the 12th ray. And this is why, you know, my whole work is really putting this into form, into horizontal alignment. After we get vertically aligned, it's how do we get into, you know, meta horizontal vertical alignment. And, you know, that's why our whole coherent living model, the CLM, our self-governing collective organizing template is called, you know, the stellated dodecahedron. It's based on the geometry that is the foundation of the unconscious languaging of the universe, which is 90% of our brain function. We're so wrapped up with 10% of our brain. I was so wrapped up of who I was before I, you know, interface. I don't like to say walk in, but I interface with my whole, you know, 12th dimensional, 24, 36, 48, 144 multidimensional state of being. Starts with the foundation of the 12. And the only way I can interface that was through embracing the 90% of my unconscious that I was still in denial of, that I didn't want to embrace, that was in my waking, dream, and dreamless states. Specifically, a lot of my unconscious behaviors and patterns that make up 90% of our brain function. We're only using 10% of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, to navigate the light spectrum, which has to do with the five senses: what we taste, what we touch, what we hear, what we see, you know, what we feel, you know, what we smell. All of these things are only confusing us in the 10% of our brain. I'm not saying we don't need it, because we need to be able to be in the body, in the third dimension, get up, you know, shit, eat, sleep, take care of our bills, drive the car, whatever, right? But if we don't start navigating the 90%, then you get to deal with the dam that breaks of the 90% of your unconscious when you finally pass away. When you go through the transition death process, that's what hits you first. So most of us bypass that process just to celebrate, oh yeah, we're great. And then we kind of get recycled through the light, right? But if you want to absolutely become multidimensional, then you have to start to do this work with the multidimensional subatomic particles. And we have this opportunity to do this now, and at least get started. And that's what you're talking about with, going into Hades, going into the underworld. This is the unconscious. And the more that we can celebrate and have the joy to go in the unconscious and do that inner plane work, it's just like I was saying, like you get pushed through all what you see, but then you realize all of what you see and all that wants your reaction, and the demons trying to get you or swipe you. It's all just this more things that they just fall away. They can't touch you. You become unstoppable. You become invincible. You become, invisible.
Well, totally. And what I feel is teaching us to be afraid of the dark or keeping us in an unconscious state. That's why the programs run and our creative channels are infected with narratives and things that we don't want to enable, but yet we're enabling it because we're infected by it. So when we go into the dark, I feel we, face hell, face those demons to transmute it and recognize it as the creative cauldron, the mother womb where we can begin to be more conscious co-creators like you're talking about. But we have to almost like go through the layers of the so-called hell zone where it's incredibly uncomfortable. We face our demons, we feel the attack from maybe archons that are taking advantage of our traumas or our times of feeling a little bit debilitated by it. But like you said, when you had to push the accelerated button on it, I almost see like blasting through the gatekeepers, dissolving the senses and seals of the DNA, dissolving it all down, bringing in that energy that, it's just so incredible. Like you really speak, you speak a universal language, you speak the language of, truth. But I have to say that I've dedicated so much to trying to just really put words to a lot that you're talking about. That's why it's so important to talk to you, and why it's like, once you meet Miracle, you're never the same again. After I talked to him, I was just like, whoa. You also said, okay.
Oh, well, you're a pretty amazing sister too. I'm just, the honor is all mine to co-create and walk this noble path again. This noble life path,
Didn't you say you were a big wave surfer and you had a real close to death experience doing? You said you had 7 deaths. I don't know if you want to just name a few, and then we'll talk about your projects. We'll probably have to close here, but this is what I'm so passionate about. Is sovereignty and connecting the 12 and realizing that uncovering this divine blueprint is where God Goddess is intervening. Nothing's going to save us, because the challenges are to help us to find that divine center. So I could just go off with how inspired I am by the conversation.
I know. I heard. I love your fire. I think it's freaking amazing. I'm duly inspired. So it's a pure reflection here. So I just want to say one thing. Some people get kind of triggered by the work of the shadow and the darkness, and I just want to say, if it's easier for people to understand the English word voidal intelligence, the void for me is the formless form. It's formlessness. It's before we have any form, before we have any attachment to form. This is kind of more of a, Tibetan path words, Dharma word. But I would say that, if you realize that you being in a human body is such a precious thing, it's such a noble thing, because you don't know if you're going to get another noble human life again. You don't know. We just don't know. It's all determined, right? And there are so many beings that are trying to get on the earth plane to work out, to even have the opportunity to work out, to even face your demons, to face all of these obstacles, to face all these obscurations, no matter how intense, no matter how suffering they are. To even have that opportunity is so freaking precious. Okay, I just want to reiterate that. And so every moment, your greatest wealth is your health, but your greatest health is your time. And how you spend your time and who you spend your time and what you spend your time on is the greatest wealth and health. And it's the greatest commodity. And so, spending more time in the void, you get to realize that you are choosing to interface with what the Tibetan Buddhists call the Bardo States. And these are the processes and the states of being that are in between death. They're actually in between every single breath. So as you exhale and then before you inhale, you have a Bardo state. It's the in-between state, just like right after you exhale and before you inhale, you have a Bardo state, right? So these Bardo states of when you pass away and you exhale your last breath in your physical vessel, you're going to have a Bardo state. And the Bardo state is how much you're either embracing and loving the void or you're having afraid and fearful of the void, okay? And there are 6 Bardos, main Bardos, that signify these in-between states, and they represent different collective intelligences. So the first one is the hell realms, okay, which are the underworld, the lower realms, the realms in which the cabal, the masters, attempt to interface with, okay? But I would even say that they would be like your Lucifer, your devil, the highest council of archons, if you want to speak. Then you have the next Bardo state or realm is the hungry ghost realm, which is really the realm that is part of our local hierarchical planetary archon, of the families, the organized darkness, okay, the ones who own all the natural resources, the banking system. These guys are part of the hungry ghosts. And they link up then finally into the human realm, which is a middle way realm, walking the middle way. That's what we have to do, is we walk the middle way. And the middle way is the human realm, which is the precious human birth to be able to have all of the subatomic particles, the DNA of infinite source. It's the only hominoid vessel that has the full capability of absolute self-realization intelligence, 144%, because 100% is not enough, neither is 110. It's 144% now. And so when we can have that capability of filling ourselves up with 144%, but most of us in the human realm only fill ourselves up to 10% or 20% or maybe 50%, when you could fill yourself up to 144%. Because you have the capability of holding that much energy, that much power, and that much magic, and that much understanding of universal laws and applying them into your life to create anything you want in your life. Absolutely. And so material life is just barely cutting the surface, right? So then from there, that full total self-realization of all the realms only happens in the human realm. And then from there, you have I'm sorry, I skipped a step. Actually, between the hungry ghost realm and the human realm, there's the animal realm. Okay, sorry. The animal realm represents the animal instinct, all the animals, our dogs and our cats. So that's actually the third realm. The fourth realm is the human realm. And then what we have is the fifth realm, which is the actual realm of when we get into the first aspect of heaven, which is the demigod realm. Okay, so the demigod realm is also a big part of, what I really say are celebrities, those that are gathering for these occult experiences. We also have many, beings that are of the lighthouses that are also in the demigod realm. We have different demigods that are attempting to create magic and create these different occult forces and attempt to then finally come into the last realm, which is the God realm. And this realm lasts, for 26,000 years. It equals one year of their age, And so, they have a lot of karma to work out, and these are the planetary bodies. These are the galactic bodies. These are all these infinite bodies that create our entire universe, one of 3,000-fold universe. This is part of the God realm. So we have all of these different states of being, these bardos. And what I want to say is how you can really master all of these realms and states of being is through embracing the bridge, which is the in-between state, which is the void.
Wow. That's so powerful. Would you say that like fallen angels or the angelic realms connect with like the hungry ghosts would be maybe the fallen angelics?
Yep.
And when you go into demigod, but then to God, you have like bridging angels somehow, or how do you
Yep.
see the angelics?
Yep, exactly. But they are not the same as the human realm. That's why they all here to support us and assist us. Some of them are jealous of us. They are, I don't want to say stuck, but they have chosen a particular non-physical incarnation to serve and help different sentient beings, species, and intelligence that have a particular form, and they have a series of time that they have to embrace that contract. But absolutely, from a Tibetan Buddhist perspective, and it's also from mine, because I was Tibetan Buddhist for 3 years, 25 years ago for 3 years, it really set me on the path, is that absolutely the human realm is so precious. And just to put a really firm, solid stamp on that, because so many people in this world that we interface with, are so depressed about what it means to be human, and suicidal about it, just hate being human. They want to be another kind of sentient being. They want to be an Arcturian, a Pleiadian, an Andromedan, and I have nothing wrong with it. That's fine. We can remember those timelines. It's fun. It's great. Maybe you're interfacing with some aspects of that, but you have to embrace your humanity. You have to embrace why this incredibly supernatural, intelligent flesh suit is yours for this moment. And there are so many things that can actualize with this, and I'm obviously one example of many.
That is just so incredible. I mean, the potential of this human vessel is so huge, because junk DNA obviously isn't junk DNA, and we've been in such a limited brain capacity, DNA capacity. There's so much to look forward to if we can just move through these initiations and challenges, and they're going to be to varying degrees. You're one that's like you just don't hear about every day. It's one of the most incredible stories I've ever heard. And I just have to say, real interestingly, the whole number 144, which you mentioned, 12 times 12 is 144. We got 12 strands of DNA, 12 signs of the zodiac, 12 stargates, and how significant the number 12 is. And then the number 13 is actually the death card in the tarot. And we were talking about the void and the number 13. And then we're moving into the 13th sign of 𝗂𝘂𝗃, which is ruled by the cosmic ether. And there's a connection between the ether, the void, and the whole.
Yes.
So I just find that interesting. Just as you're talking, I'm like, oh yeah. Ding, ding,
well,
ding.
the one thing that's really cool about that, speaking about ether, well, ether is plasma. And the only way that we can actually create anything new in the universe, including in our bodies, is by us completely communicating, merging, interfacing, and marrying with pure ether, which is plasma. Okay, so plasma is only located above the light spectrum, beyond the 5 sensory world, which is right here. You got to activate the 6th sense, pineal gland, to interface with plasma, bring it down to the other lower centers, because plasma is literally instant manifestation. It is the key ingredient to bioorganic, intelligent, spontaneously regenerating, spontaneously healing. And if you want to become unstoppable and invincible, right, and unlimited, then you have to learn how you need to totally activate the learned behavior and the belief system of completely merging with plasma. And plasma is that etheric state because it goes beyond gases, liquids, and solids. This is how dimensional timelines, we can go into so many. This is how, the light vehicle, the Merkaba, the Merkab-V, the double Merkaba, the geometries, the anti-gravitational propulsion that shifts, different intelligences through, ships and shuttlecraft. All of this is based on deep understanding of plasma. But what's more powerful than creating a ship outside of yourself is the power to be able to travel as a master, like Babaji, like Christ, like all these avatars, Krishna, all of these beings whether you believe they're gods or masters, whatever, they all understood the power of plasma intelligence. This is the core understanding of divine intelligence that needs to be not only embodied, but mastered. And the way we do that is by deep states of coherent, clear meditation and understanding and learning to apply these techniques daily so that we can start to navigate that 90% of the void, because the void holds the plasma. The plasma can be formed from the formlessness into any kind of form in existence, anything. You can go anywhere with it. You can form whole new bodies with it. It's all possible. There's nothing that's not possible with understanding the deep intelligence, the deep divine intelligence, or rather the clear, crystal clear intelligence of plasma and how important it is to the biology.
Right. And that's how you sort of re-encrypted or reset the energy. You were able to connect to that greater divine intelligence. And also, I mean, intelligence includes imagination, right? Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that to me is intelligence, is the imagination, because it is intelligent and its resourcefulness, its ability to create dreams and visions. And to me, that's true intelligence is what you're talking about. Because you had to imagine and visualize, right? But that's a greater intelligence, the capacity to do that.
Yes, because so many of us are stuck in intellectualism, science that's based on Newtonian physics. All this just traps us in this Darwin theory of cause and effect, and it just keeps us on the wheel of samsara. We have to move beyond that and embrace samsara with great unconditional love, but we have to merge into uncompromising truth and wisdom body, which enables us to then move into this grand unified alchemy. This grand unified alchemy is this cocooning of what we would call, bliss phase conjugation, in true fundamental physics. Unified field physics is based on negentropic centripetal fields imploding. And you do this by meditation. You do this by different sound and energetic frequencies that enable the body to create these coherent fields at the subatomic particle level, which are based on geometries, basically based on, the star tetrahedron or, the Metatron's cube, or, all these different geometric forms are how our cells operate when we get into this fundamental grand unified alchemy. This alchemy of turning base metals, into gold, this alchemy of turning, poison into elixir, this, turning the spike proteins and these graphene all these nano things. We can transform these nano AI particles into like absolute elixirs that enhance and actually activate percentages in the 90% of our unconscious by literally, instead of having a massive reaction to it. I'm not saying that you can't have a reaction to it, but the question is, how long will you react? And how long will you go for things outside of yourself to try to mitigate that process instead of go, oh, no. Let me go back in. I'm aware of this. I'm aware of this protein. I'm aware of this nanobot. Now I'm going to go in and I'm actually going to dissolve it. And I'm going to look at, from, like you said, an imagination point of view. And I say imaginal self because at the cellular mainframe, the subatomic particle, our electron, neutrons, and, protons are spinning constantly. So as they spin, we can start to direct them in the void to start interfacing with, instead of nanobots, what would we rather create? Well, we would rather transmute and transform those nanobots into more platinum white T cells, or maybe they're beyond platinum and white. Maybe they're diamond cells. Maybe they're actually 24-strand DNA, and we're going to start directing them into bringing all of our junk DNA back online and start to imagine a cell, what that looks like on the innerverse with our own innerology. And that's the thing, is if you don't do that, who's going to do that for you?
Exactly. And there's no real medicine. People are, well, the med beds will come. I'm like, well, aren't we the most advanced technology? Can't we be the med beds? I mean, we can turn any weapon into a tool for our growth. We can de-weaponize things by, these technologies, dark technologies, are a delivery system for the mind control. If we break the mind control, we change the frequency of what it originally was. So if we're able to tune it to a different frequency, it's not going to operate in the same kind of way in our system. And we have the power of the mind to be able to do that. And you defied all these different things that they put into your body saying that this is all you have in order to be okay. And you said, I don't think so. And if people can just look at all this stuff in the face and say, I don't think so, I'm made of more. We are unstoppable miracles. And that's really the most, beautiful thing. And I just, that's why if you look at my website, I have Global Alchemist. I'm all about it. Everything that you're saying is resonating so much. And it's really validating just some of the things that, I've just kind of downloaded or how my experiences have shown me these things. And just like the whole integration of polarity, the electric magnetic, the sacred union, the alchemical marriage, the hierogamic union, the hydroplasmic Christos, light,
yes,
our consciousness. I mean, this is a love story. We're reclaiming, divorcing ourselves from the imposters. I always say this, like the bad partner, the narcissist, that there's red flags you don't want to see because you want to trust it. You've invested so much into it and people are heartbroken but wait, what's on the other side? It's a reunion. We should be celebrating.
Absolutely. Because it's so important because, what I was saying before, that in the alchemical process, there's the clear thought of turning that poison into elixir or, whatever, coal into diamonds. But you have to get to the point where that thought is so coherent, but then you have to feel, like I was saying, I felt the overwhelming joy and beyond the word appreciation. Like it was tears. It was just like when we can get into that feeling state, that expanded, uplifting state of just incredible overflow, right? The chalice is overflowing. What happens is we clear all the freaking nanobots. We clear all the things, because the fact is the nanobots, they're still in the 5-sensory dimensionalized timeline world, even though we can't see them unless we have a microscope, right? I mean, some videos are out there about, what the phone does to the graphene oxide and, they're all moving. Yeah. Well, okay, great. Yeah. It doesn't look pretty. It looks invasive, but the fact is everything is moving. All parasites move. If we embrace that we have been these beings that are seemingly wanting to control us, if we embrace that we are the New World Order, if we embrace that we are the cabal, freaking people say to me all the time when they get in the narrative like COVID this and Corona this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hey, miracle brought COVID over here. I brought it over. I freaking came from Singapore and Bali when Wuhan was said, I brought it over because I got COVID in the first 2-3 weeks. I had all the symptoms, blah, 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 in the first couple of weeks of 2020 when I came back from Asia. I was like, blame it on me. It's like, we're not victims here. We have to stop all of the giving of our power away to the outside of ourselves. The white coats do not have the answer. The doctors do not have the answer. The government, the CDC, all of this. And they are fucking so freaking afraid right now. They are more afraid than all of us. So we are the many, they are the few. So all we have to do is say, you know what? I am that which I'm keeping separate from. I am, the purveyors of the new vaccine or whatever the new iteration is or blah, blah, blah. I am the one who's freaking, voting and putting the freaking clamp down and forcing everyone to give the mandate. I am that. And I revoke all of that. I revoke all that. I transmute all of that. I realize that me being that, I am not separate from that any longer. I am that because I am everything, because I am nothing. And in the nothing, there's everything. And in the everything, there is nothing. The seeds of both are intertwined as the double Ouroboros is the infinite weave of eternality. And so from that state, we all of a sudden change we flip the game on them. Absolutely. And that's the most thing that they're most afraid of, is that we master the game, because it's a game. This whole thing is a game. It's all hologram. So it's all created out of the 5-sensory world. So as long as we play our role in, like, to get back to the puzzle piece, we all have to become alchemists. We have to become unified field alchemists. Some of us are going to be grand unified alchemists, but we have to at least become basic alchemy. And that is literally, because if we don't at least get on the path of alchemy and say, you know what, I can take all this negativity and turn it into positivity. I can take all of this, you know, plan demonic and turn it into plan angelic. You know, I can take all of this and re-script it. And all I got to do is quiet the mind, get into a thing where my inner computer is blank. So I'm not running all these existing programs, get it so it's at least calm and I'm not having as many thoughts as normal, and then have one thought and concentrate on that. And that takes practice, that takes discipline, that takes devotion. That's the practice. And then you start mastering these things one, and of course it's hard at first, but you know, it's like, if we don't do this as individuals and then as a collective group, then we're not really actually doing anything new. There is no new earth. There is no new age. There's no age of Aquarius. It's all just going to be the old stuff regurgitated.
Mm-hmm. Right. And we can experience it differently. Instead of repeating cycles and spinning on this holographic time loop, we can actually break the patternings because we're changing our perspective. I mean, they really just want to polarize us. So we're either in shame, blame, victimhood to it all, or we're compliant and obedient. But where's that middle ground, like you said, where we become it to the point where we understand that level of depravity and darkness, to the point where we understand we have to win the war within ourselves. Where are we hooked in? Where are we participating? Where are we unconscious? So why don't we become it so we know it and shine a light on it, and that unconscious agreements will begin to fall away? Because there's a lot of unconscious agreements. I mean, wouldn't you say that the power that they have, we're the true powers that be, the powers that they have is stolen power. They wouldn't have the power they have unless we gave it to them, because they're vampires, right?
Exactly. Yep. Yep. That's exactly what it is. So as soon as we turn it off, we just hit it off. We hit the off switch, you know, and we start really, I'm not saying you bypass, you know, I'm not saying you spiritual materially bypass. I'm saying you acknowledge things, you're aware of things. You know, some of us research things that are not pretty. You know, I'm one of those. I'm a meta unifier. I like to know how other beings are thinking. You know, I just want to know where they're coming from. That's how I work. I like to have in my core intelligence blueprint pattern, I'm a meta synthesizer. You know, and that's why I was received this vision, became a visionary of Communiversity, and, you know, was told to found this whole vision 18 years ago. So, I mean, I want to know what is the core patterning of how these beings think? Where are they coming from? What is their core directive? And if you go to that, if you go to the seed of where the beginning with the end in mind is anchored, okay? And I use this a lot for 20 years in my groups. And I would teach people and share with people processes of begin with the end in mind. Where are you at the very end of whatever it is that you wish to create? Because if you can't get there, and whether that's a year from now, if that's 5 years, if that's 10 years, if that's 1,000 generations, if you can't even see that and you're like, well, I don't know, or, you know, I don't know how much money I want to make. I don't know what kind of partner I want. I don't know what I'm surrounded by. I don't, you know, then you're just giving your power away, let alone allowing yourself to be affected by someone else's creation. So we are interfacing right now in a hologram that has been created, a simulation that's been created by a bunch of other beings. And we call ourselves creators and co-creators in someone else's creation, playing their rules. And this is why we are moving through this situation. For me, this is part of the plan demonic, is to force us ourselves only to look at the screen, look at the box, look at the screen, bubble screen hijack, live in a box, drive in a box. You know, everything's boxes and rectangles. That's the geometry. But we know on the inner planes and from other iterations, we've lived with all of the geometries. We can use the languaging of everything in existence. not just like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and not have the rest of the alphabet. We have all 26 letters, right? So that's what it is. It's like we have to get the whole alphabet, so to speak, and getting that whole alphabet allows us to then go, wow, we're here to create a whole new living system. We're here to create, my version of it, what I was shown is communiversity, but other people may call it different. But the fact is that we have to self-organize, we have to collectively govern, and we have to move into the next iteration to activate the regenerative living, the bioremediation, the meditation, the different technologies to support that, the children's new support structure and edutainment processes. We have to bring together, all of this work that I'm talking about individually and create a whole new creation, not continuing just to survive or even thrive in the existing creation. And that's what I ask everyone is like, how are you beginning with the end in mind in your personal life? But how are you doing that with your family, your friends, your soul family that resonates with you in your local bioregion? How are you applying this now if the old creation, which we're all seeing is imploding, right, no longer exists? How are you going to create something new? Is it going to be a really bad MTV Survivor reality TV show, where everyone's fighting each other like monkeys, grabbing whatever can of freaking spam is left? Or is it going to be like a whole new system that's not going to be based on survival and win-win and win-lose and competition and comparison and, blah, blah, blah? It's going to be based on 1-1 and based on unified field foundations and unified field principles and, different coherent living practicums. And this whole thing is like what I have been actualizing and attempting to bring out, both physically in real time as well as online now. But it's a process, and so because in some ways, I think I'll be honest, just in my points where I'm having bad days or low points, it's like I feel like I still am not sharing or showcasing and exemplifying enough because there's just not enough people who choose themselves that want to do the inner work first to a point where they're like, now I'm ready to overflow and share, and do this with other people where we can really rely on each other's strengths and support each other's weaknesses. But all of us have this unique configuration of a blueprint at the soul level that no one else can do. Every single one of us. I firmly, absolutely believe in that. All around the world, everyone has a unique signature configuration that's unique to their soul blueprint. But very few people are playing that out. And of course, I'm focusing on the few that are choosing themselves. And, there is enough of us, I firmly believe, out there. But more and more of us have got to go through this awakening process. And I really do feel in my heart of hearts that we're going to get this and we've got this and we're but yeah, sometimes on my low points, it's hard to see that too. So I'm right there with people, Yeah. And so, but at the same time, it's like, just like when I was alone with my own process, there were points in time where I really just wanted to give up. I mean, I get so many I can't even name, at different crucial crossroads of my own personal process. Am I going to make it? Am I going to ever walk again? Just as a normal human being, let alone all the other things. So, now it's like, well, I can't do this alone anymore, and I can't even do it with just a few people. There's a whole group of us that needs to do this, and then it needs to inspire many, many other groups to also do it, because, we're working on bilocating and, teleporting, but, that's the next step, right?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, we need to do this again because there's so much. If you're up for it, I would just love to do this again. This is just so major. It's so activating. It's such medicine to that deeper soul longing that people might shove down or and maybe choose to go into survival and panic instead of really, really tap into that and the direction it's wanting to guide us. Because I feel like all the what so-called one might call negative emotions is guiding us into a breakthrough. So if we have depression, well, what is it telling us? If we have pain, what is it trying to tell us? I mean, and this is, you know, what is lighting up as you talk is the body is communicating to us the solution. Even if it creates suffering and pain, there's a breakthrough on the other side. And the minute we give that power away to somebody else to solve it for us, we're basically really forgetting about our greater potential. I mean, in the face of adversity, being pushed to the edge, we have one of two choices: rescuing our treasures or having somebody else be in charge. And where does that get us? You would have still been in a wheelchair, and you are a miracle. And I love it, Miracle King. And this is one of many stories. I got a chance to talk to him in Shasta. He shared quite a few. And so there's, but this was the big one. This was, I mean, just huge. And it's interesting, the window period and the dates as well, but I could keep kind of giving my feedback and thoughts about it. Tell us about your projects and what's to come and how people can just find you. Cause I know,
yeah, sure. Absolutely.
anybody in their right mind would just want to because the thing is, you're reminding them of who they are. This is what a real teacher and guide is to me. So anyway, go ahead, share.
Yeah. So I have been really literally in the miracle moment and just really, like I said, I've had barely a pinky in this dimension, even though I'm out there on social media, FB, IG. I have websites up that explain, you know, what I've been doing on more of a metavisioneer level with communiversity.org. I can just send you those links. And obviously my work for many years with teaching and sharing my type of breath work, which is called breathlight.net. And then I have an accessory company that I did high-end activated jewelry for 5 years. It was a project that was very exquisite and powerful and has helped a lot of people, where I did 144 talismans, handcrafted, took 5 years. And those are on moostars.com. So those are my three things that are out there. But I would say that personally, and I would say Communiversity has been my main focus point of just really behind the scenes and with a lot of different alliance groups all around the world in many different countries who are attempting to actualize when we say the word new earth, and, you know, how to regenerate the earth and really establish resilient community plus, you know, regenerative, activated, coherent education, you know, based on different organizing models and governance, because so many people are seeing that our governments are not supporting what needs to happen, you know, and this movement towards what I call enlightened heart sovereignty, this consciousness movement to become sovereign individually and then activate it with others, and create collective avatar sovereignty. This is the key crucial component. And I know so many hubs around the planet that are doing this across borders all around this planet. And it's powerful and it's beautiful with all the ups and downs and challenges and trials and tribulations they're going through. But people are getting it, and they're moving locations physically. They're uniting and creating, you know, connection with their tribes. And so that's really why I feel like I'm still alive, to be able to be of service to that. And obviously the individual aspect is still important. I just want to say one thing about the individual, and that is just to, I think a big part of also that's such a big theme is this return to primordial innocence. Because when we're in our mom's womb, we're not like trying to figure out whether or not we're going to have, you know, the perfect, you know, nail structure and, you know, curly hair and, you know, we're going to be this tall. And, you know, that's all happening in that 90% of the unconscious, right? It's happening with our mother, our DNA, the gene, you know, the whole different process. It's in the innate intelligence. We're just floating in a pink, unconditional love, you know, cosmic ocean soup space with, you know, being baby fed through the embryo. We're hanging out on our mother's ocean womb, this pink amniotic sac, and we're just letting the innate intelligence do its thing. And it comes out perfect. And so and here I am, you know, underneath this whole rose at my friend's place here, her
So
temple in
incredible,
Sedona. And it's like, I just want to speak to this because I've been feeling this like rebirthing of this primordial intelligence. And all we need to do is be able to get back into that pre-limbic embryo state for a little while. We just have to be able to hang out there and enjoy doing nothing, hanging out in infinite emptiness awareness, 0-point voidal intelligence space, whatever you want to call it, the blank space. Concentrate on blackness, an ocean of blackness, an ocean of infinite black, no stars, no nothing, because the stars, the planets, they're all part of something. They're all part of the formed out of the formlessness. So go beyond the stars, go beyond there and keep going, keep merging with it. And that's kind of the process I'd love to offer people is like, people ask me all the time, like, how do you do this work? How do you get into the blank state? How do you get into the like non-dimensionalized voidal state? You know, well, just start dissolving everything in your life. Start with your body, start with the things around you. You know, if you need to close your eyes or put on a mind mask or, you know, go into a closet, whatever, you know, dissolve everything. If you're outside, dissolve the nighttime sky, dissolve the blue sky, dissolve all the things that you own, dissolve everything as if they don't exist. Because guess what? When you leave your physical vessel, you can't take any of that with you anyways.
Right.
So all you get to take is your memories. So all you can do is activate your imaginal cell and your memories and dissolve all that, dissolve everything in your five sensory world, and then be able to just concentrate on the expansion and immerse yourself as if you're in the womb cave, back in the great mother's womb of infinite blackness, and just hang out in the blackness and see what happens. You know, see how long you can hang out there without having any thoughts. And if the thoughts come, just let them float away and just keep dissolving, keep merging with everything and dissolving it and marrying everything. If something comes up, merge and marry with it. Something comes up, merge and marry. So there's nothing left. And I think, you know, what I would just end with is that, like, through this process, this is really what enables us to do this. Now, obviously, this helps if you can get into a dark room, or if you can go and, you know, do it in your own room, blackout, get blackout curtains, you know, find a way to spend long amounts of time, like start with 24 hours, maybe do 3 days, maybe also add in a fast, try to just do a water fast or do like a green juice fast. Do these things where you're forced to not have other senses, right? The sense of taste, the sense of sight, so that the other senses have to be relied on. And then you'll easily see how you can apply this into your life, and you'll get information from the vast intelligence that governs the infinite formlessness, the infinite timelessness within the void. Okay? It's alive. It is so alive, you would never believe it. You just need to get through all the fear, the uncertainty, the doubt, the despair, what I call the FUD. Get through that in your own life, pierce through that miasma, all those clouds, storm clouds, and then get into that darkness and just hang out there. And the light spectrum of everything will come into your field and give you the information that you need. Now, of course, you may have to do this for a while because it's could be difficult for some people if you've never done it before. But you need to activate the habit. And the more you do it, the more you activate your willpower and you set a schedule every day, every night before bed, every day after you wake up. You set the tone for your daydream, you set the tone for your night dream. And then you start to receive information and intelligence. You know, and you're going to have good days and bad days, but as long as you set a discipline and do this work and do this kind of meditation of dissolving into the infinite void and merging, marrying everything that comes up, everything. You don't care what it is, what kind of demon it is, what kind of angel it is, just merge and marry with everything. Become the void, become the infinite intelligence, become God, become the grand organized design. What happens is innocence, primordial is what happens. And anything that's wrong with your body is going to come back into homeostasis. You know, that's just it's innate. It's natural. It's already in there. We've just had so many learned behaviors and habits and programs that convolute and confuse and ignorantly supplant everything and subvert everything and manipulate everything. So we just have to let all of that go and rest in this primordial emptiness awareness. And from there, you know, that's where juicy things can start to happen. And it takes work. I'm not saying it's easy, but you got to start somewhere. And once you start applying this, you know, the next step is to really form a connection with other people, okay, that are in your community that can relate to this kind of work and be like, wow, I don't need to take ayahuasca or something to have a DMT experience every weekend and get another habit that's not going to be bad. That may be good short term, but not good for you long term. Like, create a habit where you're activating normal states of DMT. You know, this is a way to activate normal states of dimethyltryptamine. It's like, it's just going to happen. And then you start to manage your multidimensional awareness in this 90% of the unconscious that everyone has in their brain function. And so from there, that group cohesive field, and maybe this is something that we can go into in another talk, is how we cocoon together. You know, this is how we connect with each other, cocoon together. You know, this is something that Dan Winter, who's one of our, you know, dear older brothers, who's, you know, totally part of unified field physics. He's a genius. He's just an amazing man and inspired so much of our coherent living model. You know, he said the coherent living model, when we introduced this University at his last fractal field in person, which was in France in 2019, he had me present Communiversity, and he said, hey, you're basically taking what we've been teaching in physics and we call it cocooning. And the next stage for humanity is you need to be able to do that yourself and activate your own bliss phase conjugation. Then you need to do it with other people. And so it becomes a collective cocooning. And this is actually where collective communities are going to transform to that community and then activate this collective butterfly. And no, we don't all have the color of the butterfly and maybe everything detailed. Maybe we do on our own. I surely have been this, you know, attempting to paint this, what it looks like myself, you know, and my team and other members, but all of us have an opportunity to begin with the end in mind and look at, well, what does our butterfly look like? If we press the reset button on our own reset button, you know, not the great reset button, but our own reset button, and empower our own reset button, what does it look like if we reboot the entire reality on the surface of the planet of the Earth? What does that look like? What does it feel like? What are the colors? How do you live? You know, how do you exchange goods and services? Are there even a goods and services? Or whatever it is, how are you going to do that? What are the things that you love in your life? How would you do it differently if you know that the system right now is breaking down and this patriarchal thing is just freaking imploding? How would it feel if you had equal value philosophy and gender equanimity between brothers and sisters and men and women and, you know, girls and boys? How would it look like? What would that look like? Uncles and aunties, what would a village look like? What did it feel like? What are the technologies? What are the natural water birthing systems? What do the dances look like? What are the meditations looking like? What do they begin with the end in mind, with the people around you? Begin with how to create coherent living, you know, with others. And so that would be, you know, a first and a second step. Individual, then unite with others in your local region. You know, since traveling is a little bit more difficult, or if you're not in the place where you don't have anybody, then I would suggest you need to move. You know, get in a car, get rid of shit, scale down, become a minimalist, and move to the location that is calling the environment, the location, or even the people. You know, wherever that's going to be for you. You know, and you know, if you want to go deeper into this dialogue, Laura, we could definitely set up another. It'd be my honor to go even deeper into some of these protocols and things we're doing. But it's my joy to share. But I think that would take us into a whole nother presentation.
I know. So, I could talk to you all day. What you just shared, though, is like the kind of thing that I would be standing up and applauding, standing ovation as your final words. And I just have just a few things that lit up as you were talking about. But what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, you know, we can definitely do a follow-up. And, you know, I would say that I'm very open to being of service right now. I'm currently in Sedona, and I'm like I said, I'm very multidimensional. So, there's definitely been offers of doing different conferences and getting out and speaking right now. And, I really feel like my main mission is to inspire as many people to go through these processes. And so, whatever inspirations that people might have after seeing this call, very open to ideas. I'm open to, if they have questions, if they want to host me, if they want to present something, if they feel some kind of resonance, because right now the work is the most important thing. And obviously the individual work is something that I can only share what's helped me and what I've done to actualize becoming a human, unlimited miracle. But I really feel that everyone can, because it's all possible. And now my work is really like dovetailing between that number one and then the number two, which is, how do we do this together? How do we be and do this together?
Gosh,
that's what really excites me. And so, and we don't have this in reality yet. And, but we have 330-page white paper that's still being updated. We have a web page. We have team, but, a lot of us are having to navigate, the three-dimensional world, and we're doing as much as we can. And we really want to onboard more people that are resonant and that can have a place at this round wheel and be seen, and also have strengths, both in the financial capabilities and as well as activating, different forms of what we're talking about, the education and the regenerative architecture, and, as well as disclosure and stuff like that, because the knowledge is a big part of it as well. But we have to collectively experience what it means to go into 1-1, and how from 1-1 we apply a unified field way of thinking, because we don't have examples of this. The greater dimensional timelines of sentient beings and more expanded states of experiencing what it means to be in life, they're doing that right now, because it's a hollow hierarchy. And they gave us these models to help humanity go into the next iteration. Because without a model, you can't just jump from just survival and win-lose and top-down systems into thinking that kind of programming after 40, 50, 60, 70 years of being in that kind of predictive programming, habitual programming, and think you're going to go into a new model and think, okay, there's not going to be a whole dissolving process. It's like, no, there's a process. We have to unlearn what it means to work together,
and that's what I love.
And so, yeah.
Finish your thought, and then I'll share a few thoughts.
Yeah, so that's basically it. It's just I think that we have an opportunity through this kind of open source mystery school specific to what we've brought out with the CLM, and it's a constant inner evolving process, and would love to talk more about that with you, and maybe off camera, and then think about how this can help your people. And I know you affect a lot of people, and a lot of people look to you as as someone who is, leading the charge in your own sphere of influence. And so, but yeah, I'm excited to the possibilities, and excited to co-create more and see how we can continue to unfold, activating this whole new paradigm for this beautiful planet.
Wow. This is what's so incredible about just talking about it, because it just brings life to it. And I mean, diversity and harmony to me is true oneness, but diversity isn't going to work under a programming if you're not authentic, if you're not sovereign, if you aren't willing to do the inner work. And it doesn't mean that we've got it all figured out, but we can hold space for each other, right? Because we're going to have our good days and bad days, and new challenges are going to be thrown. And the most important thing when I think of community is whatever our differences are. I mean, we have to trust synchronicities, the timing of things, how we all come together, but that the most mutual agreement is integrity and willingness to do this greater shadow work as a community to affect the whole in a good way, where we can cry on each other's shoulder, where we can bring up our traumas and our triggers, where we can state where our boundaries are at. Because I know so many communities always have, not always, but maybe that one person that's taking advantage of their position and wanting to convince people, oh no, this is what you need to do. And if you don't, this is what's wrong with you. All these vulnerable minds that get so tricked and played. And this is what I love about your frequency and everything that you've done, is because it's like you're safe, you know? And that safety is so important for children, for people that are recovering from, you know, different abuses. And when you were talking, especially about the light entering, when we embrace the darkness, is very much the crone card. So when we look at like maiden mother crone, the crone coming out of the underworld has gained the lantern of wisdom, who can see through the dark because of that level of wisdom. So what you were sharing kind of lit that up. And then also the soil, the darkness of the earth, the rich soil that receives and grows life. That is, to me, you know, how we integrate our light and dark, is that we are these incredible creative vessels. And that's just what I wanted to just add, and what images and what things that you lit up as I was listening to you. And it really brings it back to nature and how we, on a soul level, are more connected than we can imagine. It's just so crazy that this matrix web has been able to encase so many people, but it's just a matter of freeing the mind. And there's a lot to look forward to. And it's not doom and gloom. Everybody be so careful of what you allow into your system, because when you allow something in, it is like a seed, and you're going to enable it or give birth to it, and it's going to become a reality. And if you don't like it, like you said, if you don't know the end result or what the intention is, all sorts of things can sneak in. And then it's not a synchronicity. You might be like, oh, that person talked to me at the store and they seem to be interested in me. Maybe I should date them. And then all of a sudden they try and kill you. It's like, no, what is your intention? Be solid in yourself, because then you'll confuse the randomness of life for being something significant, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 144%. Totally agree with you. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
For so long. Thank you so much for your time. I can't believe it's been 2.5 hours. One of the longer interviews. I might put it into
wow, that just
but I bet a lot of people are sitting here just not even recognizing how much time has passed, because time is pretty irrelevant when it comes to these subjects. But thank you for the reminders. I feel stronger, more activated, and more aligned with myself and spirit after talking to you. I know it's been pretty rough for all of us, and you are a living miracle, and just really appreciate you and love you. And I look forward to doing more.
Yes, totally. The feeling is completely mutual. And you know, I just remember seeing you. I mean, I've been listening to you for years, but seeing you at the Disclosure in Shasta and seeing you on stage, and just thinking to myself, like, wow, this woman is just a firecracker. She is just so lit up. And I was just so inspired by your soul, and just not even just what you said, because it's like we see each other, you know. I feel there's a mutual soul love of, like, you know, we're on the same plane, you know, we're sourcing from the same intelligence here. But I just remember thinking at that moment, like, wow, I really feel like we're going to work together at some point. And so excited that, like, I was seeing you in person for the first time, like, again, and that you were, that the wish was like, you know, just so, was really excited. And I was just like, man, I just really wish there were so many other women like this woman on stage. Like, all these women that I know are, you know, I know some incredible women, but just the inspiration and leadership that you've carried the torch for so long. Just want to acknowledge that. And I love you so much, and so grateful to be on this call with you. And thanks for inviting me. And I pray that it brings some level of coherent transformation to everyone who is listening now and will listen at a later point in time. And absolutely. I look forward to more.
I do as well. And I know it has had a tremendous effect. And sometimes it takes a little while for people to catch up with what they just heard. But major, especially in an eclipse window that we're in. I'm so glad the timing of us coming together. And I look forward to more. Much love to you, Miracle. And thanks everybody for tuning in.
Yes, so much love. Aloha, everyone.